All right, guys. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, we've got a lot to cover today. As it relates to the Commonwealth Leadership Summit that's going on right now in Samoa. It's concluding today. Today is October 26th. It started on October 21st. And I want to discuss a lot of the controversies surrounding this summit going on right now as it relates to the countries that make up Commonwealth nations. Countries basically that were colonized by the British government, countries that were robbed of their resources, countries that were impoverished as a result of slavery, colonialism, and policies that the British government has imposed on those countries that have kept those countries enslaved to today. Some of those countries are asking for reparations to be on the agenda at this Commonwealth. A lot of the Caribbean countries are demanding that that should be a conversation in the summit. What's wrong with that? I think that is a fair and reasonable ask. I think that conversation around slavery and the effect of slavery against African countries, against Caribbean countries, countries who were directly impacted by slavery and also colonialism and also policies today that are constantly robbing those places. I think that's a fair ask and reasonable ask by any country, right, to the British government. But no, the Prime Minister of Britain, Keir Starmer, says no. King Charles says no. They even went as far as saying, and I want you to hear a direct quote from them, they're not apologizing for slavery. Okay, so let me read some of these for you, because we've got a lot to discuss as relates to this. Because when it comes to reparations, it's a word and a conversation that's not new. What's new is that you don't often hear these types of conversations around African countries and around countries affected, right? Countries that were destroyed by the British government as relates to slavery. You don't often hear them. But now we're hearing this conversation, and I think that that's a just thing. Let me read this. So according to Reuters, it says Britain says slavery reparations not on its agenda at the Commonwealth Summit. It says Britain will now bring the issue of reparations for the historical transatlantic slavery to the table at the meeting of the Commonwealth nations that began in Samoa on Monday. But it is open to engage with leaders who want to discuss it. Yes, so let's talk about this in private. We're not going to talk about it where it matters. Talk about it, in the bathroom. Talk about it somewhere off the table. Talk about it somewhere in secret. That's where they want to have this conversation. Not where it really matters. So leaders and officials from 56 countries with roots in Britain's former empire will attend this week's summit. In the Pacific Island nation, conservative British government have rejected calls for reparations, but the chairman of the Caribbean Communities Reparations Commission, Hilary Beckley, told Reuters there were hopes that these stance might change under the new Labour administration after 14 years of conservative rule. Both British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and King Charles will attend the Samoa meeting. But a spokesperson for Starmer, I want you to hear what this person says. A spokesperson for Starmer reiterated on Monday that reparations were not on the agenda. He says, we do not pay reparations. The position on apology remains the same. We won't be offering any apology at the Commonwealth Head of Government's meeting. Let me repeat that one again for some of you in the back, especially those of you who are lovers of British government. A lot of you black folks who love anything Britain, anything England, your head is in the sand. Let me read what these people says about your country that you come from and the plight and the sufferings that your people went through at the hands of these people that you so much love. Okay. We do not pay reparations, the spokesperson says. The position on apology remains the same. In other words, they have refused to apologize for this years in the past. Our position is the same. we won't be offering any apology at the Commonwealth Head of Government's meeting in Samoa. Okay. Now, here's another one coverage here. It says, apology for slave trade, not on the agenda. Right? It says, the Prime Minister has called the transatlantic slave trade abhorrent, but rules out reparations, as he said countries affected will rather than the UK. Listen to this one. Countries affected will rather than the UK help them with current issues, such as impact on climate change. So, the countries affected by the evil that we did, the evil that the British government did, will rather, they don't want this money. They'll rather that we talk about current issues like climate change, right? They don't want to talk about those types of things. This is what he's saying, okay? So he's obviously telling you and me that the issue of reparations is a nonsensical talk. It's not something you should be bringing up. That's not what most countries affected are talking about. They want us to talk about climate change, not the impoverished nature or the situation that they find themselves as the result of the British governments looting their land, colonizing them, policies that the British government have placed on those countries that are affecting those countries today. No, those countries in their right minds don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about climate change. Okay. So I want you to listen to this British journalist who I think will give you an idea into the minds of people who think like this, people who are non-black, as it relates to the conversation around reparations. I want you to hear him, because many times when we talk about reparations, a lot of the pushback that you get from non-black people, people whose ancestors, right, caused the issues and the problems and the poverty that a lot of people that look like us face to today. I want you to take a look at his mind and hear the type of talk that people like that have as it relates to reparations. And we'll have a conversation about this.
Our Prime Minister, I'm still with Talks International editor Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, our Prime Minister, our dear leader, Keir Starmer, he should be just about in Samoa by now, the South Pacific island where they are staging right now the Commonwealth Leaders Summit, where Keir will be presented by the usual absurd demands for slavery reparations. The Caribbean nations are asking for as much as, check this out, £19 trillion. Because to compensate for the fact that some of our forefathers kept slaves in the plantations in Barbados, etc. Nobody alive is responsible for that, and those idiots expect us to give them 19 trillion.
Did you hear what he said? Nobody alive was responsible for this, and those idiots are expecting money from us. This is the type of conversation and type of argument you often hear from a lot of people who are non-black, white people, whose ancestors participated in slavery. Now, what they don't want you to talk about and what they shy away from is that they benefit today. They benefit. They have been enriched and wealthy at the backs of the things that they say they didn't participate in. Now, I want you to pay attention to this, because this is important. Because when it comes to the conversation on reparation, it's a very, very touchy subject, and it should be for every black person alive today. Every black person alive today should always hold every white person feet to the fire as it relates to reparation. Because what they will often say, these are white folks, right, is that we didn't participate in slavery. The stuff that you just heard this guy say. Weren't alive. But what they shy away from, right, is that while you might not have been alive, and while you might say, oh, that was a bad thing that happened, you're benefiting, and you benefited from slavery. Oh, you didn't hear me. We better have a conversation today. Because that is the part that they want us not to talk about. Is that they're quick to say, no one alive did this. We didn't participate in that. But no, the land that you built wealth off of was ill-gotten at the backs of slaves. Not only that, the wealth you got in your country were gotten from colonialism, from countries whom you ravaged their land. So, which one is it? Is it that you didn't participate, or is it that you're benefiting from it? That is the conversation, and that's why we're asking for this. You don't get to cap out while you're benefiting at the backs of the impoverishment of people whom you looted their lands? No.
They're just hustling. And the answer is no. And don't bother asking us again, because we will never, ever give you this money. Drop the subject. It's ridiculous. That's the agenda there. But the King and Queen, of course, are there. Keir Starmer should be arriving about now after a journey that apparently took him 28 hours. Did he go by bus or something? Did he go over?
I've had enough of
He just went
arrogant person, British person, this evil person. I've had enough of that. Okay, so let's have a real conversation about this. Okay, because when we talk about reparations, that is a conversation and a talk that you often never hear from Africa. You often hear it here in the West. It's a conversation that I think is just, that black people should ask for. Because white folks whose ancestors, right, caused the minds of black people who are benefiting today, who became wealthy at the wealth gotten through colonialism, slavery, don't get to say, I didn't participate in this, so you can't ask me for this. So here's the ask. Either you give back the wealth that you took and inherited from your great-great-parents, which caused life to be easy for you. Either you give that back and then absolve yourself from this, or you will hold you responsible for this. You don't get to cap out of this. You don't. Because African countries are impoverished today because of colonialism at the hands of the British government. African wealth and resources were taken and stolen from their land to build your country, to build your road, to build your infrastructure, to build your schools, to put money in your bank, to put money in your system. You don't get to have those money, benefit from that, live your life, build houses, take your kids to school, buy cars, and have the type of life you have at the backs of those countries, and tell us that somehow you didn't participate in it. No, you participated in this. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Of course you participated in this. I don't, yo. Bro, I'm telling you, sometimes when I think and I see how a lot of these people think, it amazes me. It amazes me that you're finding leaders from Caribbean countries, right? Are saying, listen, this needs to be on the agenda. Where else are we going to have this conversation? Because you're seeing the prime minister saying that, yo, we can talk about this in the secret. We can't talk about it here. Where else? Where should we talk about this? Where is the appropriate place for us to talk about this? See, they want to run away from the sins, from their sins. See, these are the same people that can point out everybody else's sin, right? The British Empire, the British government, the king. These ones are quick to point out the sins of every country, especially ones in Africa. But they don't want us to point out their own sin. So when it comes to their sin, it was the past. Leave that one alone. What's wrong with you, black people? Why can't you get over slavery? What is wrong with you? Why you keep bringing slavery up? This was like 200, 300 years ago. Grow up. Now you grow the hell up. You don't get to live wealthy and rich in your country, snuff your noses down at everyone else in Africa, in the Caribbean countries, and then tell us that, oh, yo, I wasn't alive for this. Yeah. So, but when your great-grandfather passed you that land, passed that land down to you, that business that he built, right? They're companies today that are 150 years old. They were built on the backs of colonialism. They were built on the backs of African countries. That are in England. They're 150 years old. Banks that are 150 years old. Where do you think that money came from? Where do you think that money and that wealth came from? There are museums in England today who have made billions of dollars from our resources that they took from our land. They didn't ask for permission for this. They stole it from our land, took it from our countries, and have made billions of dollars. You didn't benefit from that? Oh, we're supposed to just ignore that one. Oh, you didn't steal it, but you're making money off of that. So that makes it right for you. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think that when it comes to this, we should hold their feet to the fire every single time we get. Every single time we get. You see, let me say this about slavery. The only people that bring up slavery, right, that won't let slavery die, are white folks. The only people. Let me tell you what I mean by that. See, black folks want to move on from slavery, but you got to pay your dues. White folks don't. They bring it up all the time. When we call them on it, they tell us that we bring it up. Every time I go to the store and some guy is looking at me less than, he's bringing up slavery. Every time I apply for a job and they look at me less than, or someone not qualified for this job, you're bringing up slavery. Every time I sit at the bus station with someone that's non-black and he or she have to clench their purse, you're bringing up slavery. Every time you're bringing up slavery. Who is bringing up slavery? Do you understand this? Black folks are not bringing up slavery. But when we call you up on this, now you want to use that mind game and tell us that we're bringing it up every time. Stop bringing it up. It'll go away. Stop treating me less than. Pay your dues to our countries that you stole from, and we'll forget about this. But you don't get to bring it up every single time, every day, day in and day out of our lives when we are trying to move past this. Right? See, me going to your job to apply for a job is me forgiving all and wanting to relate with you as equal. But no, you have to look at me as less than because my skin color is a problem. You're bringing it up. When I sit with you at the bus station, when I sit with you at the store, at the movie theater, when I go, that's me trying to relate with you. But no, you in your racist view have to look at me less than by either moving position or going somewhere or putting policies in place to keep someone like me subjugated. Who's bringing it up? So when I call you on it, now I'm the one bringing it up. You don't get to do that, or you'll die. So let's talk about this. Since you keep bringing it up, let's bring it up. You got to pay reparations. You got to pay reparations. You haven't paid for the sins that you've committed against us, our fathers and our mothers and our land that you're still benefiting today. You got to pay reparations. Yeah. We're not going to stop bringing it up. You don't get to tell us when that conversation ends. We're the ones affected by it. We're the ones today that are suffering, impoverished by it. Our lands and our children, the wealth gap is so insurmountable. You don't get to tell us when to move on from this conversation. We'll move on when you paid your dues. You're a thief and a liar, and you owe us money. Now, he was saying that he will never pay this money. You're lying to yourself. You're going to pay that money. You're going to pay for it. See, a lot of them like to tell themselves that you're going to pay. You're going to pay because we're going to keep bringing this up. We're not going to let out. And I think that every African nation, every African leader, every Caribbean, every country that's ever been affected at the hands of British Empire through colonialism and slavery, you need to bring it up every single time. Let them feel what it's like to have a sin, to commit a sin in the world, right? You got to pay for that sin. You don't get to hold everybody else feet to the fire on sins they've committed, and you want to just run away from yours. No, it's not going to happen. So I say that this is a just ask. It's a just ask that every African country, every black person alive today ought to ask this every chance you get. Reparations. And let them be sick of it all they want. But it's not going to stop us from asking. Because they snuff their noses at us and tell us that we can't pull ourselves up at our bootstrap. So easy for you to say that when you had a head start. So easy for you to say that when you were given an inheritance of $1 million to start your pathetic life. So easy for you to say that when things were handed to you, where you didn't have to get it out of the mud like most of us black people do in life every day. So it's so easy for you to say that. I guess if I had that kind of head start, I guess I'll say the same thing. And then see how you like it. No. So I hope that leaders from the Commonwealth, thank goodness, a lot of the leaders boycotted this. There were only like 20 leaders that showed up to this thing. Africa is waking up, and African leaders are saying enough is enough. The hell. And they snub the whole thing. Like, if you're not going to talk about conversations that matter, why we come here? Why are we here? You're not going to talk about things that really matter. You want to have bathroom deals and bathroom talk where we can't have it where it needs to be had. Why are we coming here? And to those leaders, say kudos to those leaders. Snub them. Move on. Let them stay where they are until they're ready to have conversation around restitution to the evil they committed in the world. Until they're able to do that, which who cares about the British government and their whole series? Who cares? So thank God for the Caribbean countries and Caribbean nations asking. And I hope that every black person alive today understand that it's your right to ask for this. It's your duty to ask for this. And it's your obligation to see it through. To make sure that until these people who are benefiting from the demise that was caused on our land and our countries and our people, until they pay for this, there's not going to be any rest for them until they pay this money. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like the video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.
Det finns ingen annan där som kan stå här by my side, oh why. Sättet du rör på det får mig att dö för dig baby. För de här yardis, de vill ju bara dra ner oss. Men du är fett och vanlig. På det jag lägger all min tid och jag vill ha dig. Du får mig känna safety. Jag kan nog leda dig baby. Och jag kommer aldrig